What's going on, guys? Tower number 9 here, and today I am excited to bring you commentary on gameplay footage from the Day 2 GenCon tournament of Star Wars Unlimited. This is one of the first big tournaments of Shadows of the Galaxy meta for this game, and I want to give a huge shout out to KTOD. KTOD is the one who originally took this footage at the event. He has a long video where he was essentially streaming from the event, and it was mostly player audio. And we talked online, and he gave me permission to take that player audio footage and do a version of it where I'm going to provide commentary. So this is basically going to be my version of match commentary as if the games were being streamed. Huge shout out to KTOD. If you want to see the original player audio version, I have a link to it in the video description below, as well as a link to his channel. Go over there and give him a follow. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. I am excited for this. So for this first match, we're actually going to have on the left Mike from KTOD, and on the right we're going to have Derek from Late Night Gaming. So yeah, let's get this underway. The Mike is playing double yellow Boba, while Derek is playing blue Sabine. If you want to see my take on Blue Sabine, I posted a Fun Deck Friday yesterday with more information on my version of that. I think Blue Sabine's an interesting build, but unfortunately I do think it's at a major disadvantage against double yellow Boba in particular. And yellow in general has a lot of tricks that are tough for this sort of Sabine build to deal with. Blue Sabine, in my experience, is a much more upgrade-focused version of Sabine. And sorry, there we go. The player names were cut off a little bit. Let's fix that. There we go. So yeah, Blue Sabine is a very upgrade-focused version of Sabine, and it's vulnerable to the bounce and exhaust effects that yellow has to offer. So on the first turn here, we're going to see Mike bringing out the Mercenary Gunship. That's a 2-cost 3/2, and you can spend 4 to steal it, and either player can use this. So kind of a downside there, but not critical. Derek plays Ketsu Onyo, a 2-cost 3/2 with Saboteur, and when she deals combat damage to a base, you can defeat an upgrade that costs 2 or less. Okay. And then Sabine's ability used for 1 damage to each base. So Boba Yellow tends to be kind of a tempo type deck, which is against aggro. The game plan is usually to sort of race them and then disrupt their efforts with your exhaust and bounce type stuff in order to get an advantage in that race. And Mike is starting off racing there with the gunship. Derek throws a Jedi lightsaber onto Ketsu Onyo. This is a very risky play against a potential waylay, but it looks like Mike doesn't have it. He brings out a 7th Fleet Defender, and Ketsu Onyo hits for 6. Now, Derek could have used Ketsu Onyo's ability here to remove the TIE Defender's shield, because shields are upgrades, but it looks like he forgets to do that in this situation. We'll see if it ends up costing him. Mike takes the initiative, and Derek this time not opting to use Sabine's ability, maybe seeing that Mike has some substantial racing power there. It's also worth noting that Derek is using the Security Complex, the 25 HP base that as an epic action can put a shield on a unit, while Mike is using the 30 HP Administrator's Tower, and that means that Derek has to go a little further in this race if he wants to win it. Mike throws down a Gamorrean Guards. This is a 4/4 that has Sentinel as long as you control another Cunning unit. And because of that 7th Fleet Defender, Cunning is enabled. So Derek plays 1 for a Daring Raid, taking out the Mercenary Gunship. And here's actually where we see forgetting Ketsu Onyo's trigger is a really big deal, because if he had Ketsu Onyo's trigger to strip the shield from that defender last turn, he could have used the Daring Raid to take out the defender, thus making the Gamorrean Guard no longer have Sentinel and allowing Sabine to swing for the base. Now, it's interesting to note that he could have still done that, because Ketsu Onyo does have Saboteur. So Ketsu Onyo could have attacked the base, cleared the shield, then we see the Daring Raid. That's not what we saw, though. Instead, it looks like Derek uses Security Complex to give Ketsu Onyo a shield and just attacks and defeats the Gamorrean Guard directly. That does give up for some damage on the base. Sabine's ability is used for 1 to each base. Both bases have taken 8, though that means Derek is currently ahead. Sabine gets the Mandalorian armor, an upgrade that gives +1/+3 and a shield token if you're a Mandalorian. Sabine is a Mandalorian, so she is now shielded. And the ground arena is now looking very strong for Derek. But I do think it's possible that he might have been able to sort of outmaneuver that Gamorrean guard without attacking into it directly and giving up a bunch of damage. However, it would have regained Sentinel once Boba Fett hit the field next turn. So maybe clearing it is a better move anyway. Hard to say exactly what the best line is there. Now, one of the things that's really important about this matchup is that double yellow has access to some cards that are very bad for this sort of upgrade strategy. So in particular, Cunning, the double aspect legendary, can exhaust these units, potentially bounce them, though I think it only bounces units with 4 or less power, which means that Ketsu Onyo is out of range. Cantina Bouncer could also bounce Ketsu Onyo, I believe. Ooh, it's going to be Cunning for the double exhaust and +4 power on the defender. And Derek plays the Armorer. The Armorer is a 5-cost 3/5 that gives a shield to up to 3 Mandalorian units, and she is herself a Mandalorian. So Derek now has an extremely strong ground arena, but I don't think it's going to be enough in this situation because what we're looking at here is a +4 on that defender, so it's going to be able to hit for 7 damage. Once again, that defender still having its shield presenting a problem for Derek here, I think. If he had a Daring Raid or similar card, he couldn't have used it there. And then Mike deploys Boba. Boba is going to be able to swing into the base for another 4. At that point, Derek has taken 19 damage, only has 6 HP left on his base, and would be defeated by a single surprise strike from either Boba or the defender, or if we're seeing the hotshot deal 44 in Mike's deck, he could smuggle that out onto Boba for the win as well. So overall, a very bad situation for Derek. Even though his ground arena is extremely strong, he is currently losing this race, and I think the game is going to conclude before he can get big value out of those shields. The Cunning there was a huge swing. So Cunning exhausted 2 units that together would have done 10 damage this turn, and then added another 4 damage to Mike's side of the board. So that's a 14 damage swing from 1 card in this race. That is huge. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where this sort of upgrade-based strategy is quite vulnerable to the disruption effects that yellow has to offer, at least when it comes to a racing game. Ketsu Onyo hits the base for 6, and this time Derek remembers to use the ability to defeat the shield. So the shield removed from the TIE defender, but a single surprise strike or hotshot blaster wins, and it's a surprise strike. That's the game. So a signed copy of Surprise Strike there for 6 damage from the TIE defender, and a win for Mike. Congrats to Mike. That was, it was interesting. So he didn't have something to immediately punish the Jedi lightsaber on Ketsu Onyo. A waylay there would have been huge, but he was still able to win the game off of a huge Cunning play. And, arguably, I do think Derek might have been able to do better if he had remembered the initial Ketsu Onyo trigger to take out that shield, and thus been able to outmaneuver the Gamorrean guard or otherwise get into a good spot. But I don't know. I mean, if we imagine the world where he does it that way, and he gets like 4 extra damage on the base from Sabine, some extra damage on the base from Ketsu also, but then Boba Fett, once he deploys that Gamorrean guard, has Sentinel again, and Derek's got to come up with something to deal with it. So it might have just been a temporary advantage that he could have gained in that scenario. Both the players are sideboarding now, so let's discuss a little bit more about these decks while the sideboard goes on. So double yellow Boba is a deck that I was actually skeptical of when it first came out. This was in the early Spark of Rebellion meta, it seemed like green Boba was the most popular deck by a significant amount, and double yellow, at least in its early days, wasn't very successful against green Boba. But I think a combination of factors occurred to change that. For one thing, green Boba itself became less prominent as it became evident that deck was disadvantaged against control builds. And secondly, people came up with newer formulations of double yellow that played a more aggressive game plan and were able to be in a better spot. It still is somewhat vulnerable to control. So, for instance, you don't really want to be going up against, let's say, Krennic green, Kira green, the not the hard control decks, because you can sometimes race past those. Like if someone's playing like double blue Iden or something, sometimes you can blow past them. But the sort of mid-range control or like soft control builds, like the Krennic Green, Kira Green, those sorts of things can be more of an issue for double yellow Boba. That being said, it's a very strong deck. I think it was arguably the most successful deck of the Store Showdown season. It's hard to tell exactly because we don't have great numbers on how many people were playing which decks, but I believe that double yellow Boba did get the most number of event wins in that Store Showdown season for the end of Spark of Rebellion. Blue Sabine, on the other hand, is a kind of unusual deck. I think that the most common Sabine build has been green, and Sabine Yellow and Sabine Double Red have also seen some play. I think there's been kind of a debate as to which of those are the best one. Right now, I currently lean towards green because I think green gained the most from Shadows of the Galaxy, but if you had asked me towards the end of the Spark of Rebellion meta, I would have told you that I think yellow or red was actually more favorable, depending on the specific meta that you are playing into. And that's one of those things where it's just a matter of what you need to be countering and how you need to be countering it. So I would have been able to say, double red would be better against some of the more hard control builds. It has great answers to cards like Lieutenant Childson. It has really good ways to deal with plays like the ECL Consortium Star Viper ambush, which is a big issue for some of the other builds in the space arena. But at the same time, I thought that yellow Sabine was maybe the best like all-comers choice. I think it had the advantage in the aggro races, and I think in particular it was significantly better against Han because it had access to a lot of exhaust tech that you could use to prevent Han from doing his 5-6-7 combo, which was otherwise pretty hard for Sabine to stop. But Blue Sabine was a deck. I know that Chrono from KTOD had been playing around with it at one time, and I think that there had been some others. I remember actually on Late Night Gaming at one point getting killed by a Blue Sabine in a live stream from very early, I think maybe even before the game came out. And it's one of those things. I don't think it ended up being the strongest, but it definitely has some interesting tricks. And if you can get those upgrades going and get some units buffed up, it can be a really big obstacle for your opponent. The problem is I do think that double yellow Boba is one of the decks you have to be substantially worried about as Sabine. As a tempo deck, it is able to be very disruptive. And I think that going into an upgrade-focused game plan makes you more vulnerable to that. So it's kind of an unfortunate matchup for Derek, but we'll see what he can do here. It's very possible he'll be able to do better in this round than the previous. And if Derek can win this game, then it's going to be 1-1. And at that point, we will have to go to a third game to determine the result of this match. The players are playing pretty fast, so it's not a huge issue. I believe this is actually more or less real-time footage rather than being sped up. Sometimes I speed up these sorts of videos, but these guys seem to be veteran players. Derek leads with a Sabine Wren Explosives Artist. This is one of the best cards that you can start with against Boba, and we're about to see why, because Mike's opening play is a Crafty Smuggler, but Sabine Wren Explosives Artist can attack into the Crafty Smuggler. On attack ability knocks the shield off, and then the 2 damage gets through to defeat the Crafty Smuggler. Sabine takes 2 damage, but is still on the board, and Sabine has the ability to take out Crafty Smuggler and Greedo using that on-attack ability to gain a big advantage, and that makes her, I think, an especially strong starting play against a Boba opponent. Mike is then going to bring out a 7th Fleet Defender, which gets its shield, and Derek plays a Mandalorian Warrior. This is a 3/3 that gives an experience to another Mandalorian unit when you play it, so he's going to buff up his Sabine Explosives Artist. And Mike then takes initiative, and this time it looks like Derek is not using Sabine's ability as much, but he goes for it this turn. I don't know that this is correct necessarily, because the other deck is also aggro, so damaging your own base is kind of risky, especially because I think double yellow has the ability to win this race through disruption, but it's possible that this is something that's worth doing if he thinks that he has enough of an advantage on board right now, and he does have an advantage on board. that he wants to close the game fast. It looks like he also used the security complex to give Sabine Wren, Explosives Artist, a shield there. Mike is going to spend 3 for Bodhi Rook. Gets to take a look at the hand there, and we see Follower of the Way, Disabling Fang Fighter. I think the top card was an upgrade. I think it was a Vambrace Grapple Shot, and then the Darksaber. And in the bottom left corner there, you can actually see Mike writing down what cards he's seen. This is a good idea if you're playing in a tournament. You may as well get the advantage there. And he, of course, picks the Darksaber. If Sabine were able to get the Darksaber going this turn, it would have been a huge problem, because not only would it be a bunch of stats, but each swing with that Darksaber would buff the other Mandalorian units that Derek has on the field, giving them experience and making it even more of a problem for Mike. Derek's board is definitely stronger at this point, and we are going to see Sabine deploy as well, but Boba might make an appearance on this next turn and maybe turn things around, especially if we see another huge cunning play like we did in the previous game. Sabine's ability is being used this time for 1 damage to each base. Sabine deploys. And it's going to be, unfortunately for Derek, it's the Vambrace Grapple Shot, giving +2/+2 and allowing you to exhaust a unit you attack on attack. The on-attack ability is not that relevant, but the stats are nice. And then a Follower of the Way also hits the field. That's a 2-cost 1/3 that gets +1/+1 when it has an upgrade. So Derek has a very powerful ground arena here and has managed to do 14 damage to his opponent's base while taking only 5 damage himself. I do think he has the advantage right now, but Boba is about to deploy, and like I said earlier, those double yellow cards can be devastating against this sort of upgrade-focused gameplay. Hang on. We had a little buffering thing there for some reason. Not really sure why. But the overall, I think this is a very interesting sort of matchup. The right now, if we look at this stuff, I think I would give the advantage to Derek on the board right now. But the matchup is so favorable for Mike that I actually don't think. I don't know that I would say, oh, he's about to win. Sorry about that, guys. Just playing with this and got it restarted. Okay, so now we're looking at this board. 4 units on the board for Derek and just 2 for Mike. Mike is going to spend 4 resources and throw out a Gamorrean Guards. Not a cunning, not the worst thing for Derek. He could send in his Sabine Wren Explosives Artist here and clear the Gamorrean Guards while not taking any damage, and that's exactly what he does. So Sabine loses her shield, but does 3 damage, 2 base, 1 from the experience, 1 from the on-attack abilities. Those Gamorrean Guards are off the field, and Mike now has only 1 resource available, though he might well get some more with Boba Fett, and indeed, Bodhi takes out the Follower of the Way, getting a resource back with Boba. Derek throws a Jedi lightsaber on Sabine, going big. Sabine now a mighty 7/10, only to get hit by No Good to Me Dead. Brutal. No Good to Me Dead is one of the cards that is most problematic for this sort of upgrade-focused gameplay, and we're about to see why. Sabine could have swung in for 8 damage to base there, and then next turn done it again, but now she's exhausted for 2 turns, and that might be enough to swing this game for Mike. Let's see how it goes. I do wonder whether Derek would have done better to spread out his upgrades. Like if he had played the Jedi lightsaber on the Follower of the Way before swinging into that Gamorrean Guard, he would have been less vulnerable to be having all his stuff shut down by 1 exhaust effect. On the other hand, bounce works on his normal units, but doesn't work on Sabine. So that's quite relevant. Boba taking out the Mandalorian warrior here and readying 2 resources, but it looks like Mike doesn't have something to do with those 2 resources. Actually, neither player using all their resources this turn. Sabine is still exhausted. Yep, there we go. And this is a very interesting scenario here for the game. I think the game really hangs in the balance. Game really hangs in the balance here. And so we have it looks like a total of 17 damage has been taken by Mike's base, while only 8 has been taken by Derek's base. But that doesn't necessarily mean Derek is winning big time, because Sabine is still exhausted this round. So small Sabine trades with Boba. Now Mike is the one pushing damage to base. Derek plays Ketsu Anya. Ooh. Throws out a Bravado to ready Sabine. I think that costs less because he defeated a unit. And so Sabine now is going to be able to swing with that big buff. Oh, but there's another Gamorrean guards on the field blocking the way. And Sabine takes out the Gamorrean guards, but only deals 1 damage to base with her on-attack ability. So once again, Mike is able to prevent the potential huge damage from that highly buffed Sabine. And he did take some, but he's now taken 18 damage, which means that he has 12 HP left, while Derek has 11 HP left. One swing from that buffed Sabine to the base, though, is like 8 damage. So if Derek can get that through, that could be huge. Mike evaluating the situation. He has 6 damage on the board. He has 6 damage on the board, which is not enough for lethal. And Derek has 11 damage on the board, which is actually also not enough for lethal. He's off by 1. Mike is off by 5. If he has some buffs or a fire spray or something, he might be able to get it. Swings in with Bodhi Rook. Sabine into the base for 8. So that's going to be not a lot. I think there's only 4 HP left on this base. Oh, actually, I was slightly wrong. It's I think there's 5 HP left on this base. So, we have Ketsu Anyo can swing in for 3. If there's any upgrade or buff for Ketsu, that could be it. The 7th Fleet Defender swings in. That's 3 damage to Derek's base. 5 HP left for Derek. Ketsu Anyo just swings. 3 damage in. 2 HP left. Removes the shield from the defender, even though that probably isn't going to matter at this point. And Mike is going for Fett's Fire Spray. Does Derek have Daring Raid for a cause any other direct damage? He doesn't have it. And he scoops. That's the game. Mike wins a very close race. Only 2 HP left on his base at the end, but Derek did not have any direct damage to base to close things out. I think that No Good To Me Dead on Sabine was the key play, disrupting a huge amount of potential damage. Even though Derek had the bravado to swing again with the highly buffed Sabine, he was not able to win the race. So congrats to Mike from KTOD for getting the win there, and I think this match really did showcase the dynamics that I was discussing early on with respect to double yellow Sabine's disruption double yellow Boba's disruption being very effective against an upgrade focused deck like blue Sabine. Okay. So that is going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks to y'all for watching, and we'll be back later with some more videos from this event. There is Code Dameron at the end there. I think he had some discussions and so on in between rounds. And big shout out to him, Code Dameron, for this footage. Like I said earlier, go and give him a follow. And if you want to check out the original footage with gameplay audio, check that out as well. Both will be linked in the video description below. Thanks again for watching, and we will be back later with more commentated gameplay from GenCon, courtesy of Code Dameron. Catch you guys later.